Recharge team. We've got Jen Carfagno filling in today along with Dr. Greg Postel. So if you guys could keep it one way year-round, would you rather have year-round daylight saving time or year-round standard time? What do you think?
Well, I like the light in the evening.
So daylight saving.
Yeah, daylight saving. And you know what? With saving, I also don't mind the shift going back and forth. It's just one day, and
Really?
it takes a little
Yes.
while. I like it because the winter is just a weird time, and the summer's got its own thing, and I like the switch.
What about you, Jen?
No, I'm very passionately don't stop changing time, but I prefer standard time. I would take either, though. What about you guys?
I wish we could do a half hour.
You're doing the half-hour thing. We're really going to be
I know
confused.
it's too complicated, but I mean, I just want to meet in the middle somewhere. And I do hate, like you, Jen, I just hate trying to figure out the clock every year.
Yeah, it is a bit of a stressor there. How about universal time? What if everybody were on one time around the entire world? Would get used to it eventually, right?
Greenwich Mean Time, Zulu time.
Yeah.
UTC.
Then we wouldn't have to do conversions in our head.
Definitely gives us something to talk about twice a year at any rate. We're going to keep talking about it today. Actually, coming up in 20 minutes, we're going to hear from a sleep expert about why making standard time actually would be better for our sleep and health.
Yeah, you know what? I like though with what saving time does is allow a few extra of our hours that we have in the light in the summertime, and yet it also during the winter time. So again, this is going back. Let's not get into it.
I know,
This
we
is
can't
worthless
stop. I know
talk.
you all are having this
Forget
conversation
it.
at home too.
I want to
Now
talk
that
about the
we
weather.
started it.
I want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about daylight saving time.
We
Sorry.
got a lot to talk about weather-wise, actually.
Yeah.
So welcome into Weekend Recharge.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for joining us on this very busy now Saturday morning.
Yes, that's right. Dr. Greg Postel here, along with me, Jen Carfagno. We've got you covered with America's weekend weather, and I'll tell you what, we start with active on both coasts and in the middle.
Yeah, and you know what? So much is going on. We're going to get a lot of impactful weather today that's, as Jen said, accurately moving across the country. Look at that satellite picture. Jen, you've been all over the story, but the California rain and snow and the atmospheric rivers, it's all happening in the West.
It really, yesterday, everything just started unfolding, basically, with these dangers. Really crazy images, and we're going to show you more about this and tell you where you are right now and what's coming next, because we have another couple of storms headed our way, another atmospheric river event, and flood watches are actually, well, this is up to tomorrow, but I think it'll be more next week.
It is remarkable how this year has really stood out in recent years as being so rainy and so snowy. It's been a drought situation now for decades in the West, and this is doing a lot to help alleviate some of those concerns.
Now, these systems are often coast-to-coast storms. This one that we're watching right now in particular will be heading to the northeast. And hey, before we get to that one, we got to see what's happening with Winter Storm Ricardo here in the northeast. We are looking at snow coming down. Even New York City has changed over to snow.
So this Winter Storm Ricardo, and I'll talk about this in a second, is a developing hurricane force low, but thankfully it's doing all of that offshore and moving away.
Yeah.
We want no part of this system that is intensifying extremely rapidly now over the Atlantic.
Yeah, we know some goodbyes are harder than others, but this one is sweet.
This
We will
one's sweet.
say goodbye to Winter Storm Ricardo.
Yeah.
But of course not before leaving behind some snow and rain as it's departing. And we're looking live at Dublin, New Hampshire, and Faulkner Island in Connecticut, where both spots have seen some snowflakes this morning.
Yeah, we have this winter storm that is going to be very impactful across parts of the Northeast. And let's have a look at my first graphic here, which indeed shows you this developing hurricane force low. The pressure that I could find on the model guidance right now is somewhere around 985 millibars. Now, it is going lower than that, at least probably to the high 970s, and the winds are ferocious, but those are staying out to sea. Thank goodness we want no part of the worst of this system. But, as Jen was mentioning, it is still bringing some impactful weather to the Northeast. Right now, New York has gone over to a little bit of snow, and some other areas in the Northeast as well. But the worst of it, thankfully, is here. You can see all those circles now popping up, meaning the system is still intensifying and thankfully heading out in that direction. Goodbye. But before it does, it will bring a little bit more snow to parts of North Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey, one of my hometowns, right about there. A little bit of rain mixed in with snow. Parts of New England, including central and western Massachusetts, a bit of snow. But when you look at this radar, what you see is the snow kind of fracturing, falling apart a little bit, and we still have a few winter weather advisories yet to go over southeastern New York State. But Jen, this system is winding up, but winding out as it moves away from the coast, and by mid-afternoon, it will be almost over.
Now we go to California, where flooding rain swept across parts of the state on Friday, triggering a flash flood emergency, leaving behind a muddy trail of damage. Just look at how this water took over the neighborhood in Kernville. Unfortunately, the water won't have much time to recede before we do have more heavy rain coming back into the picture. Want to talk about everything happening, what we've seen, what we're going to see with the next system coming in. This is the past 2 days. Big rainfall amounts. You're looking at some of the numbers there. They're just to look at the scale. Once you get up to the orange and the red, we're talking 5 to 8 inches of rain. There's that plus into the pink, so a foot plus of rainfall across the coast. Really hard hit where the mountains just south of the Bay Area, and then the upslope area of the Sierra Nevada. That's where we had some of the biggest rainfall totals. And there in the Sierra Nevada, that's where we also were dealing with snow melt. So you had rain coming down in inches, close to a foot. Then you also had inches of snow melt happening as well. So it was really just a disastrous situation. Now, as we look at the forecast ahead, we've got another system coming in. It'll be another atmospheric river, not as strong as the past one, but it's still bringing a lot of rainfall. We're looking at 3 to 5, even 5 to 8. This one is going to be focused north of the Bay Area. So this past atmospheric river, its center point was just south of the Bay Area, to use that as the sort of the center point there. Now, we still have some flash flood concerns going on. We still have precip going on. You can see down here right near the Springville area in Tulare County, we still are watching those warned areas. That's where we had the flash flood emergency and still watching for concerns. Here, and that includes Porterville, it includes Cotton Center and East Porterville as well. Again, Tulare County. It's still raining. And the fact that we're getting the snow melt coming down, that doesn't just turn off either. Like the rain could end. That's our problem across that area. But then we go back over to Northern California. A few showers coming in here as well. We've got a flood watch that is up through Sunday for this whole region, all the way down through the Central Valley. Talked about Kernville in California, watching the Kern River, watching a lot of the rivers too, because sometimes you don't see the worst of the effects until maybe a day or two after the rain as everything drains in. Still possible that we'll have some flash flooding. Watching just around San Jose and then north of San Francisco in the Bay Area for river concerns today. Now, let's take you through the forecast. Again, I mentioned that the next system focuses on north of the Bay Area with the corridor of the biggest moisture, but we'll see it spread out. I mean, everyone gets some rain chances coming in here as we get through the weekend. Now this is into Sunday. We see that pushing in, watching for rainfall from Eureka down to San Francisco and San Jose. Showers on the move Monday and Tuesday, then spreading down the coast back to Santa Barbara. And we will get a little more rain into LA and San Diego as we get you into your Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. Plus the snow is going to keep piling up again. Now, as we watch the system that just hit us yesterday in California move to the middle of the country, there'll be a severe side to it. So, Greg, take us through that.
Yeah, Jen, we do have a chance of severe weather today and tomorrow across parts of the South. As that very same system works its way across the country, it will bring just enough of the ingredients that we think will support severe weather right in this zone today. But I think it's going to be more an evening event to overnight event. Not so much during the early afternoon or mid-afternoon, much more so as we head towards sunset and even thereafter across parts of Arkansas and Oklahoma and areas nearby. Severe weather is indeed possible, and that does include a chance of a tornado or two. So we'll be watching out for that, of course. And the reason why is because the weather system that Jen was talking about moving across the west on the satellite picture shows up very nicely here. But you know what? When you take a deep dive into the data, you look for the system and the traditional setup that we would get for severe weather, it's kind of hard to find because this weather system right here, although it's moving eastbound and bringing some Gulf moisture, dew points are climbing through the 60s in Texas, this system kind of flattens out and just kind of rolls across the southern part of the U.S. over the next 36 to 48 hours. Let me show you what I mean by the timing of the thunderstorms going through the evening. Look, we're not going to see much during the morning and even mid-afternoon period, but by about 7 or 8 o'clock, boom, here comes some big storms rolling across parts of Arkansas, Little Rock, heads up, Texarkana, Memphis, Tennessee even. We don't know exactly where these thunderstorms are going to be, but where they do form, they could be rather significant. And then that sets us all up, Jen, for tomorrow as the system continues to move onto the southeast, all along the I-10 corridor like that.
Yes. All right. So let's go to the northern side of it, which has snowfall with it. We got a frosty start to the weekend, and that comes as no surprise in Duluth, Minnesota. You're under winter storm warning beginning at noon local time, going through Monday as Winter Storm Sage is expected to unpack 6 to 12 inches of snow. Definitely cancel those travel plans here if you can, and if you can't, you need to use a lot of extra caution. Plan for extra time. You know the drill. We've had a snowy winter. Let's take a closer look at what things might look like in Minneapolis. I'm standing here in the virtual view of Commons Park. The snow just keeps on coming. We've got about 10 inches on the ground right now. We're going to add to it. And Minneapolis, quite a story with our snowfall this year. We are continuing to tack on the inches. If we get 0.3 more, we'll move into 10th place for snowfall when it comes to the seasonal snowfall. If we get this 3 or 4 inches, that would put us in 7th place. So Minneapolis, we are moving up the list, about 3 or 4 inches here in the forecast with Winter Storm Sage as it comes in. The bigger snow is going to be north of the Twin Cities. We'll see that for you, northern Minnesota, mentioned around Duluth, but also northern Wisconsin. So the last system, Ricardo, that came through actually gave us a little bit more in the south side of Wisconsin, like around Kenosha and Racine. We picked up, what, 9 inches? This time you'll get less, but we will be looking for that heavier stuff to the north. The whole system was in the northwest yesterday. Now we've seen this move across the northern tier and it's pushing in here, moving into North Dakota. It's a low pressure. You can see kind of the spin to it up here. This is going to be not just a snowmaker, but also a big wind maker across the area. So watch for that in places like Fargo today. We do have some blizzard warnings up here across this area. We're watching for the snowfall already, seeing it all the way down into Norfolk in Nebraska. Sioux Falls, I checked you out. You've got snow coming down up towards Fargo. It is snowing as well. And I checked your winds. We were gusting to about 36 miles per hour, which isn't quite blizzard criteria because the visibility was still at a half mile. And you have to have that happen for 3 hours in a row. 35-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-mile visibility or less for 3 hours in a row. But we will see. We've got that potential today. The winds are going to continue to ramp up. That's why the blizzard warnings are up. Even if the snow isn't falling in parts of North Dakota, you can still get to blizzard because the snow can get picked up and blown around and reduce that visibility. Now, we're going to be watching the snow falling along with the wind moving from Fargo into Duluth. Still snow showers flying around as this upper level disturbance kind of hangs out across this area, then finally moving out as we get you into Monday. So how much in Des Moines? We've got a couple of inches east side of town, maybe 4 or 5 north and west side of town. So get ready to do some shoveling. Greg, now northeast, this is headed their way.
It is, and it's going to take on an entirely new sort of setup as we go forward over the next couple of days. Well, here in the Northeast, as you mentioned, Jen, Ricardo may be on its way out, but don't uncross your fingers just yet. Let's take a live look at Boston, where Winter Storm Sage is set to unpack another round of fresh snow early in the upcoming week. Let's have a look at, let's take us now to Monday morning, because this winter storm over the Midwest and Great Lakes will be moving across the region and then sort of take on a new life form, right? It's going to redevelop across parts of coastal sections of the Carolinas. We think off of Hatteras Monday morning, the development of low pressure, a new low pressure will begin to take center stage as it brings together tropical moisture and cold air in precisely the way that you need for a big-time winter storm. And that's exactly what this is going to be. It is going to be a big-time winter storm, and we got to watch this thing very carefully, because it does indeed appear that Monday evening, rapid strengthening will be underway. That's not a good sign. And the question is, how close to the coast does this thing get? Now, what I'm showing you here is an average of a whole bunch of models run by the European Center, right? It's actually very likely the best forecast. I did a lot of studies on this many years ago. What we're showing you here is probably the most likely track that looks like that, which brings rain along, let's say, the Jersey Shore, eastern Long Island, perhaps coastal New England, but very heavy snow, likely just a bit inland. That is a potential storm track. Even though it's an average of a lot of model simulations, it's still a potential track. We don't know exactly. There's room for other scenarios, and they are also very impactful. We could have a scenario that is a bit farther to the west, and we can have one that's a bit farther offshore. Now, what does that do? Where does it go, and how does that matter? There is a point on the map called the benchmark that seasoned forecasters in the Northeast are well aware of and use it. It is a point on the map where if the storm track, like this during the wintertime, moves basically along and to the left of it, like is certainly a possibility in this case, we end up making it more of a rain event along the coast because it brings a lot more Atlantic mild air into play. However, there is definitely a distinct possibility, and even if this storm tracks along the most likely path and to the right of it, that brings a lot of heavy snow, and I might add a lot more heavy snow to the big cities of the Northeast. You got to pay attention. This is a big storm system not to be messed with. We'll be right back.
NexGard is the flea and tick protection that's #1 with vets.